where are you with things? Where are you going? You know, what's the plan?
Well, the plan is, because, you know, there's a lot of issues with the elections, that, you know, which is why I'm here. But so we're going to basically make it so it's fully transparent to everyone. And everybody says transparency, and then they don't let you see anything. Which transparency to them is, I covered my tail so you can't catch me at anything. So we're not doing it that way. We're going to have videos of all the processes, you know, that we can have. Obviously, when you vote, there's no cameras,
Sure.
right? When you separate the ballots from the envelopes on mail-ins, there's no cameras, because you would then be able to put them together. So those two will be blocked up. But everything else, you're going to be able to see the ballot, you're going to be able to see the process, you're going to be able to see the count. We're going to actually have all that visible to people and available before they ever go in the machine, because there are a lot of concerns about machines. You know, I was the guy who actually wrote the initial prototype, and in that prototype for the machines was the code to cheat. So it can be done, and unless you're going to blueprint the system, which they don't do. They don't even try. Unless you're going to blueprint the system and lock it down, there's no way to catch it. Impossible. They think, oh, well, we have the source code that we can't read, and we don't actually compile, and we don't actually check, but we've got it, therefore we're good. They got nothing. They got nothing. So anyway, but we can eliminate any problems with the machines prior to it ever getting to it. So everyone will be able to see the process when you go to a precinct. All the mail-in ballots will not be opened early, will not be counted early. No one will have access to that information. They'll all be sorted by precinct and sent to the precinct with the election day voter. On election day, all of that will be stacked together, sealed so it can't go anywhere. The process of stacking them to the different batches will be on camera, so everyone can see what those ballots are, right? I mean, you can't count unless you slow it down, of course, because, you know, it's going to be moving like this, but you'll be able to see it. Then they'll be transported back to Central, and we're thinking about maybe just to make it faster, because, you know, elections in Shasta County have taken like weeks and weeks to complete. I would like to be right up near the top of the first one reporting. And we can do that. If we don't mess around, we do it right. You know? And then we will bring it back to Central County or to the satellite, because, you know, there's some places that are pretty far out. If we have like a satellite main that we can operate, then they can come to that, and that'll reduce the drive time to get the stuff there. Because right now, you know, it's very expensive if you try to put tabulators in every precinct. And a little hard to control, in fact. So we bring it back there, then we recount that same stack. This is before it goes to the machine. You recount the same stack so that the people can see that it is the same exact ballots in both processes after the move. If it's not, something happened during the move. And we need to find out what that is, obviously, right? And we can always get back to this one and go, well, this is the original. So if something did get corrupted here, we know this is the corrupt one, because we have the base. Then you send it through the machine. Then you count it again. So now you know that nothing happened in the machine. There's no machine magic. There's no ballots being kicked out. It's not a magic show. It's actually doing a tabulation. Because, you know, if you've ever been to a magic show, you know, the tiger and the girl appears from the black box. So nothing's going to appear from our black box, or if it does, you know, if a tiger and a girl comes out here, then we're going to know it, and you're going to compare it. So even if someone could cheat the machine, they really shouldn't with us, because they'll get caught.
Now that's the number of ballots. What about the actual votes themselves? You know, that could be...
They will be able to see that.
Well, if necessary,
they'll be able to see it on video. We're going to actually count it through on video. So if they slow it down, they can actually count every vote themselves. We can't, because California, for some reason, passed this ridiculous law. You couldn't hand count anything, so we're stuck with it. But everybody else in the county will be able to count it, including if you are a candidate and you want to check your own race to make sure everything's correct. Then you can count precinct by precinct and look at your race and know what went on.
So it would be done if you suspect something, if a candidate suspects something.
If they tell us,
Yeah.
then we can investigate it. But other than that, we're just going to give them the video. We're not actually going to do that extra, because some people go, well, that's a lot of work. Well, not for us. You know, we're just giving the ability to have meaningful observation at every step of the process. So everybody knows what's going on. Because if everybody knows what's going on, they'll be happy with the process. And they'll be happy with the results, even if they lose. Because people don't mind losing. I mean, they do, but what they really mind is not knowing if they really lost. And that is the biggest problem. So we're going to fix all that, and we're going to try and move into a new building, because the building they've been using is horrible. The processes are stacked on top of each other. You can't actually see them. In the last election, you know, they had the big problem with having to duplicate ballots,
Yes.
except they did a lot of the duplication out of sight of the observers, which is very illegal. Violates state law, violates federal law. So, you know, there may be some issues still coming around the bend on that. We'll have to see if that shows up here. But, you know, we're not going to do that. Anything that has to be duplicated, you will see the ballot they're duplicating, you will see what they're duplicating, and you'll be able to compare them side by side. The big walls they put up against people where they chase out the public and don't let them actually get close, that's all gone. The walls are coming down, just like Berlin. The walls are coming down. And so what we're going to do is we're going to let the observers stand directly behind the volunteers or the workers actually working on the ballots, and they'll be able to see what's going on. In addition, the camera will have a video screen above them, so that their job mainly is to make sure that what they're seeing on this video screen is what's going on down here. That's actually the bad job, because the good job, we're going to build a lounge where people will be able to go in and see whichever station they want to see, or all of them, and sit there and have milk and cookies while they're doing their observation.
On screens then?
On screen, they'll be able to see absolutely everything.
Yeah, okay.
But, you know, so take a turn standing up too, guys. Come on, you know. Because that will be the bad job, but somebody needs to do that. That's an important job, to be right there over their shoulder and to see that everything is up and up, and that actually that video that's being recorded is what's going on. They're the important people. The other observers can be watching for other things, any sort of weirdness going on, but when you stick a camera on things, most times weirdness goes away, you know, because you're on camera. You're going to get caught, and people are going to see what you're doing. So there won't be any ballot stuffing from the aspect of, you know, the mail-in ballots. We're going to work on an education program, because a lot of people think that they have to take their ballot and run to some drop box somewhere, which is kind of silly, because California actually pays for the return mail. All you have to do is fill it out, put it in your mailbox, and the mailman will deliver it. And at this one meeting we had, somebody said, well, all of our mail goes to Sacramento, which is true, but it's not. All of your mail goes to Sacramento. Any mail you drop to the elections department is supposed to be sorted and comes directly to us. It does not go to Sacramento. It does not go to LA. It comes directly to us, and you don't have to fight with it. And so we're going to eliminate a lot of those drop boxes, because they're also a problem for concern, you know, who's dropping what. So, whereas if they drop it in a mailbox and there's any sort of hanky-panky, there shouldn't be, because that's mail fraud and that'll get you in a lot of trouble. The drop boxes are a lot less regulated, but we're going to try and reduce those down to as few as we can get away with, and most of them are really stupid. They're within a mile of a post office box. So you could drop it off anyway. In fact, I was looking through the system, and we have one in Bernie, right next to the mailbox, right next to it. Why? It makes no sense. So it's just a added cost and inconvenience. You know, staff has to run there, and then you have to trust the staff as opposed to trusting the mail. So, you know, I'm sure the staff is good, but I'd rather trust the mail. That guy's pension he's going to lose if he messes up, you know. Staff here, you never know what's going on. It's just better. It's safer, and people will be more secure.
So the voting process and the operation here, are you getting buy-in from the staff? Have you introduced all this stuff yet, or?
Yep, it's all introduced. Everybody seems on board. They initially were concerned because it sounds like a lot more work because you're reconciling all the ballots. You're reconciling them 3 times, actually. Once here, again when you transport, and again after they go through the machine. So 1, 2, 3. That's a lot of counting, except it only takes a few seconds to count them because we're not actually counting anything. We are just doing the recording and showing that the ballots are exactly the same throughout the batch process. So there's really no addition. In addition to that, they were concerned that it would slow things down because, you know, now you're doing this process and we're not doing any of the mail-in ahead of time, because there's always been major concerns on who knows what's going on. You know, this is kind of a process that the public doesn't usually get to see. And even if you show up, you're put 500 miles back, and, you know, if you bring binoculars, they'll take them away from you. It's kind of like, oh, you observed. You observed nothing, right? You're just there. So we're going to eliminate that so no one knows what's going on, including me. No one knows anything any sooner than everyone knows it. And that's the way it should be. So the public will know everything, actually before we will, because we won't be counting those precinct videos. We will be processing back here. So when we give our numbers, the public will probably already know if they're correct, because the people running will have already checked their races and go, you know, they'll slow down the video and they go, let's see, I got 29 votes there and 47 votes there, and they will have done the math, and everything will be all above board, and they'll know before we do. And if our number's off, they'll be telling us.
This is just selfish question probably, but how are you going to release those numbers? Like, do you think it will be quicker, you know, for us, for you to release the totals, or as it moves along, the totals that you've counted to that point?
Well, I'm not sure what California's going to allow, because there's a bunch of laws on the books. I was at a legislative session, and there's a bunch of changes they're trying to do, and, you know, and I don't know. In California, if it's a mandated change, the state has to pay for it. The state has no money, so most of the bills have no prayer of getting out of committee because there's no way to fund them. So they could be the best bill in the world, but they cost $50. There's not $50 there, you know. So that's the way that one's working. But so we'll see what comes out. I'm going to try and release them as soon as legally possible. If they can watch the counters on the machines, I'll let them watch them. There's going to be the most transparency you've ever seen in your whole life, because most departments, even if they're honest, kind of want to hide the ball because they don't want to get caught messing up.
Mm-hmm. Not cheating, but just making a mistake.
Yeah, not cheating, just making a mistake, because it looks bad, right? Mm-hmm. In my opinion, it looks worse to hide the ball than it does to, because the cover-up is always worse than the crime, right? Mm-hmm. You know, look at Nixon. The cover-up killed him. The crime was he was a little bit paranoid. And so he let people out there doing things that he shouldn't let them do, but the cover-up, you know, was the bad part. Had he fessed up right then and there, you know, people would have said, oh, okay, you're fine. And that's what you should do. If we make a mistake, we want people to tell us, because we shouldn't be making one. These are elections, and elections are important. That's your voice. And without it, and without people trusting it, you have a problem. So,
from a practical standpoint, I'm envisioning you sitting in your chair, going through the ballots, counting them, but then there's like a whole crowd of people behind you. Like, how do you...
Well, you really only need a couple that's going to stand going behind the ballots, because they'll be able to make sure that the video is the same that's coming up.
Okay.
And then all the other people will have this nice little lounge set up so they can sit there. And I haven't worked out everything with IT. They may have to go to a particular station, but I would like it so they could just they could flip stations. Like, I want to watch you know, precinct 68, and I want to watch precinct 117, and I don't want to have to get out of my chair. So if we can make that happen,
Okay.
that would be best. And then they can watch, and it will be like they are standing there. In fact, it will be closer than if they were standing there, because they're going to be basically, if you're standing over somebody, sure, going to be 2.5 feet away from the page, from the ballot. Whereas the camera will look like it's got the ballot right in your face. So you will see everything. And you'll see the workers' hands, and may not see the workers' faces, and we're going to try to utilize a lot of volunteers, because there's a lot of interest in elections in this county. More than any other county I've been in, and I've been in a zillion of them all over the country working on this. And so everybody is really wants to make sure it's perfect. And so we're going to try and bring in people that want to make sure it's perfect.
Can you do that legally with volunteers?
I can do that with volunteers.
Okay.
And we can do that with part-timers too. So if we want to pay them, we'll pay them. If we have the money. But most of them will be glad just to sit in the process. There will be some qualifications. You must be able to count to 50. That's it. Because your stack is 50, and the machine's going to do the counting. But, the real work is done when the people are comparing these videos to make sure that they are legit and that everything is correct, and it will be. So they'll be doing the real work. They'll be going back there and doing the double check. Now, once all that's done, then we have to do the audit. And that will be a volunteer process as well. Whoever wants to volunteer for the audit, the more volunteers we have, the more things we'll audit. We have to audit 1%. But if I have 10,000 people that want to do an audit, we'll audit every precinct. Might audit twice if we have enough people that want to be involved, because it's important that the people know that the election belongs to them. It doesn't belong to the politicians in Shasta County anymore. It now belongs to the people, and we're going to bring them in and give them every bit of access that's legally possible.
Where are you going to do this? You were talking about looking for a new building. Do you anticipate that before the next, is the next one, a year from June? Is that
Yes,
okay.
In fact, we are trying, and this is record speed for counties, but but we are trying, and they are very helpful. This county is very helpful. All the staff has been helpful. The board has been helpful. Everybody's been helpful to actually acquire a building and have our first test election within 90 days. Impressive, huh?
Yeah.
So we were out yesterday looking at Joanne Fabrics, nice big building. We now pay lease on the building over on Market Street, which has bad parking. Have you been there?
Oh,
Any problems with
a
it?
few times.
Can you think of any problems? Anyway, I don't know what they were thinking. So we want a nice big area, handicap parking, everything ADA fixed, everything up to snuff, which it will be in retail buildings. Any retail building's been open within the last 10 years, it'll be okay. It'll be perfect, right? So we'll get in that, and I'm told we can't use volunteers to help assist get the building ready because California law doesn't allow you to, which is a shame, because it'd be nice if we could involve the public in that as well. Because I know a lot of people would like to come help, clean walls, mop floors, take care of the side, whatever they could do, right? To make sure that Shasta has a great election. But we get these nice big buildings like that one. There's one over Barnes & Noble building. I don't know if you know where that one was, the Halloween stores next to it. It's a nice building. So we haven't looked at that one yet, but we're looking at all the buildings, and if we can get that done, then we'll have a beautiful election where everything is perfect and everybody is welcome, and you won't be stuck behind a wall, okay? No bars you have to look through.
Are you even going to bother with tearing down the existing building now, or?
Well, that wall has to come down,
okay.
Symbolically, if nothing else.
Okay.
So I'm thinking if the county lets me, I'm not sure what the rules are regarding that, but I guess the wall came out of my budget. So if we can cut that wall down and cut it into little pieces for the citizens to say, here's your piece of the Berlin Wall, we might do that. We might even, charge a couple bucks and get the money back they spent on that stupid thing. But I don't know if you've seen that thing at all, but it's like 8 feet tall with spikes on the top of it. Very friendly, very friendly. I don't know if they ran out of money before they put the razor wire on the top or not, but it's appalling. It's not the way you treat the public.